A crisp white envelope slapped against a door. A stern woman's face etched with smug satisfaction. The flash of a single sentence in bold read, "Cease and desist." Then her face again, poolside, frozen in utter disbelief as the party rages around her. The water was a perfect, impossible blue. It was the color of liquid sky, the kind of blue that scrubbed a man's soul clean. For Alex Thompson, that was precisely what it was for. He'd bought the house in Willow Creek Estates for one reason and one reason only: the shimmering turquoise rectangle in the backyard. It was a baptismal font for a life he was desperate to forget, a life of sand and sirens and the sticky copper smell of blood. Here the only scent was chlorine and freshly cut grass. The only sound the gentle lapping of water against tile. He floated on his back, eyes closed against the brilliant Tuesday morning sun, letting the water hold him. His sister Maya sat on the edge of the Baja shelf, her feet submerged, scrolling through her phone. "You look ridiculously peaceful," she said, not looking up. "It's unnerving. You're supposed to be brooding. That's your thing." "I'm outsourcing my brooding to you for the summer," Alex replied, his voice a low rumble across the water's surface. "You seem to have a knack for it." "Ha. I'm just looking at the neighborhood Facebook group. Someone's complaining about the shade from their neighbor's oak tree falling on their prize-winning petunias. This place is a war zone," Alex chuckled, a sound that felt rusty but genuine. "Let them have their petunia wars. I have my moat. I am untouchable." He spoke too soon. A shadow fell over him, eclipsing the sun. He opened his eyes. A woman stood at the edge of his pool deck, arms crossed, posture as rigid as the wrought iron fence that separated his property from the meticulously manicured world beyond. She was in her late 50s, with a severe blonde bob that looked like it had been sculpted from lemon sorbet and left in a wind tunnel. She wore a pressed linen pantsuit, an absurd choice for the sweltering heat. "Mr. Thompson," her voice was crisp, consonants sharp enough to cut glass. Alex slowly paddled to the side of the pool, resting his arms on the coping. The sudden intrusion felt like a physical violation. "Can I help you?" "I am Carol Mercer," she announced, as if presenting a royal title. "President of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association." Maya put her phone down, her brow furrowed. "How did you get in the backyard?" Carol's gaze flickered to Maya with dismissive contempt before settling back on Alex. "The gate was unlatched. A clear violation of Bylaw 14C regarding property security and containment. A first offense warning will be in your file." Alex pulled himself out of the water sluicing from his frame. He felt exposed, standing there in only his swim trunks before this fully armored woman. "I didn't realize the HOA did spot inspections." "We are a community of standards, Mr. Thompson," Carol said, her eyes doing a slow, critical sweep of his backyard. They lingered on the new gas grill, the inflatable flamingo floating in the deep end, the two empty beer bottles by Maya's chair. Each observation seemed to add another layer to her disapproval. "Standards require vigilance. It has come to my attention through concerned neighbors that you have—" "Plans, plans," Alex repeated, grabbing a towel. "To host pool parties," she said, the term dripping with disdain, as if he'd just confessed to starting a cult. "Let me be unequivocally clear. Willow Creek is a tranquil, family-oriented enclave. It is not a fraternity house. It is not a resort." Alex exchanged a look with Maya, whose expression was a mixture of disbelief and burgeoning anger. "I was thinking of having a few friends over for a barbecue this weekend," Alex said, his tone deliberately reasonable. "My friends have families. There will be kids. Unsupervised minors in proximity to a large body of water is a liability nightmare the association's insurance will not tolerate." She snapped back instantly, as though she had a preloaded response for every possible argument. Furthermore, Bylaw 7A, Paragraph 3, explicitly limits non-resident vehicles to 2 per household on non-holiday weekends to preserve street access for emergency services. "I'll ask them to Uber," Alex said, the corner of his mouth twitching. Carol was not amused. Her eyes narrowed. "Do not be facetious with me, Mr. Thompson. This isn't just about parking or insurance. It's about noise. It's about precedent. It's about the character of our community. One loud party encourages another. Before you know it, the peaceful enjoyment we guarantee our residents is shattered. I can guarantee you it won't be loud, Alex insisted, his patience beginning to fray. The peace he'd felt just minutes before was a distant memory, replaced by a familiar simmering heat in his chest. We'll be done by 9. The ordinance is 8 p.m. for any auditory emissions exceeding 50 decibels, she recited. The sound of splashing, of laughter, of music, it all carries. It is an invasion. So, what you're saying is, I have a pool I'm not allowed to use with friends? You are allowed to enjoy your property within the covenants, conditions, and restrictions you agreed to when you purchased your home, she stated coldly. A document I suggest you reread very carefully. I am not here to negotiate. I am here to inform you. Any gathering of more than 6 non-residents without prior written board approval which, I assure you, will not be granted, will result in immediate and escalating fines. Beginning at $500, Maya finally stood up. You can't be serious. This is his house! Carol Mercer turned the full force of her icy gaze on Maya. And who are you? I'm his sister. A temporary guest, then, Carol concluded, dismissing her entirely. She looked back at Alex, her expression hardening into something almost predatory. Some people move here believing the rules do not apply to them. They learn quickly and expensively that they are mistaken. We have a zero-tolerance policy for disturbances. I live 2 houses down, Mr. Thompson. My ears are very sensitive, and my memory is very long. It was a clear, unambiguous threat. This wasn't about the rules anymore. This was about control, about power. She was marking her territory, and he was the intruder. Thank you for the information, Ms. Mercer, Alex said, his voice dangerously calm. I'll keep it in mind. Her lips pressed into a thin, triumphant line. She gave one last, withering look at the inflatable flamingo as if it had personally offended her ancestors, turned on her heel, and marched away, her back ramrod straight. They heard the distinct, sharp click of the side gate latching shut behind her. For a long moment there was silence, broken only by the hum of the pool filter. The perfect blue of the water now seemed mocking. Wow, Maya breathed, her eyes wide. She's a nightmare. She's a bully, Alex said, throwing his towel onto a lounge chair. He felt the familiar anger coiling in his gut, the kind of cold rage he'd worked so hard to leave behind in the desert. He had come here for peace. But it seemed trouble had a way of finding him, even in a suburban paradise. What are you going to do? Maya asked. You can't let her win. You just bought this place. You're going to let her dictate who you can have over? I don't want to start a war with my neighbors my first month here, Maya. She already started it, his sister shot back. She came into your yard and threatened you. This isn't a war. It's self-defense. You can't let a person like that have power over you. It's like a weed. If you don't pull it out, it'll take over the whole damn garden. He stared at the water, at his own distorted reflection. He saw the tension in his shoulders, the hard set of his jaw. He had spent 2 tours of duty following orders, living by a rigid set of rules designed to keep him and his men alive. He knew structure. But this was different. This was arbitrary tyranny disguised as order. It was one person's ego trip, and he was supposed to just roll over. He was still stewing an hour later when his phone pinged. It was an email. The subject line was stark and official. First notice of potential covenant violation. 1217 Magnolia Drive. It was from the Willow Creek HOA. He opened it, his heart rate picking up. The email was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive legalese. It formally documented his stated intent to host an unauthorized gathering and outlined in excruciating detail the schedule of fines for non-compliance. It mentioned noise, parking, unapproved guests, and even aesthetic disturbances, which he assumed was a legal term for the inflatable flamingo. The fines escalated from $500 to $1,000, then to $2,000 per day, plus legal fees. It mentioned the HOA's right to place a lien on his property for unpaid penalties, and at the bottom a list of those it had been carbon copied to, the entire HOA board of directors. She hadn't just warned him. She had publicly shamed him, creating a paper trail to paint him as a problem resident before he'd even had a chance to unpack all his boxes. She was trying to isolate him, to make an example of him, He felt the blood drain from his face, replaced by a glacial calm. This was a declaration of war. He wouldn't fight her on her terms, a battle of angry emails and petty complaints. He wouldn't sink to her level. He would rise above it in a way she could never see coming. "You're right," he said quietly, looking at Maya. "She can't win." He walked over to his laptop, the wet print of his feet marking the travertine tiles. He sat down, the threatening email glowing on the screen. He ignored it. Instead, he opened a fresh document. He created a bright, cheerful flyer using a festive template. Bold letters across the top spelled out, "You're invited." Below it, he wrote, "Join your new—" "You're actually going to invite her?" Maya asked, watching as Alex's printer churned out a stack of brightly colored flyers. The scent of fresh ink filled the home office. After she basically threatened to put a lien on your house? "It's not an invitation, it's a chess move," Alex said, his eyes fixed on the printer tray. "Right now, she's a predator picking off a lone target. But if I make this about the community, she can't attack me without attacking the idea of the community itself. She wraps herself in the flag of Willow Creek standards. I'm going to take that flag and shove it down her throat respectfully." "Respectfully?" Maya repeated with a snort. "You learned some dark arts in the army, big brother. Just strategy," Alex corrected her. He carefully stacked the 100 flyers. "And this is phase 1. Winning the hearts and minds of the populace." For the next hour, they walked the quiet, sun-drenched streets of Willow Creek Estates. It was a neighborhood of oppressive uniformity. Every lawn was a perfect emerald carpet. Every mailbox was the same regulation black. Every driveway was power washed to a pristine white. Alex and Maya moved through it like friendly insurgents, rolling up the cheerful flyers and tucking one into the handle of each front door. They got a few suspicious looks from behind curtained windows, but also a few friendly waves from people watering their identical rose bushes. They saved one house for last. Number 1221 Magnolia Drive, Carol Mercer's house. It was indistinguishable from the others, yet somehow felt more severe, as if the very air around it was held to a higher standard. A small, perfectly lettered sign near the door read, "In this house, we obey the HOA." "Let me do the talking," Alex said to Maya, tucking the rest of the flyers under his arm. He walked up the perfectly swept path and rang the doorbell. The chime was a melodic, four-note affair that sounded offensively pleasant. The door opened almost instantly. Carol stood there, still in a crisp pantsuit, this one a pale shade of beige. Her eyes widened fractionally when she saw Alex, then narrowed into slits of pure venom. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice a low growl. "To what do I owe this unwanted solicitation?" "Good morning, Carol," Alex said, deploying a smile so warm and disarming it felt like a weapon. "I just wanted to drop this off personally. I'm having a little get-together on Saturday for the whole neighborhood. A welcome barbecue. I really want to get to know my neighbors and start off on the right foot here in Willow Creek. I would be honored if you would come." He held out the flyer. For a moment, she just stared at it, as if he were handing her a live snake. Her mind was clearly racing, processing the audacity, the sheer tactical brilliance of the move. He wasn't hiding. He was putting his party front and center, cloaking it in the language of community and neighborliness she claimed to champion. Slowly, her manicured fingers took the paper. Her eyes scanned the words. "Community welcome barbecue, meet our neighbors, fun for the whole family." A muscle in her jaw twitched. "This is a transparent ploy," she hissed. "It's a party," Alex countered, his smile unwavering. "I checked the bylaws you were so keen on me reading. Section 9D, community-wide events announced at least 72 hours in advance are exempt from guest limitations. I'm inviting all 154 households in Willow Creek Estates. So, you see, it's not a private party. It's an officially sanctioned community event." He had found a loophole, a tiny crack in her fortress of rules, and he was driving a truck through it. Her face, for the first time, lost its mask of smug superiority and was replaced by a flash of raw, unfiltered fury. She was cornered. If she tried to shut down a community event, she would look like a tyrant. If she let it happen, he would win. "You think you are very clever," she said. her voice trembling with rage. "I think I'm a neighbor who wants to grill some burgers for other neighbors," Alex said, the picture of innocence. "I truly hope you'll be there, Carol. It wouldn't be a community event without the president of our HOA. See you Saturday." He turned and walked away, not giving her a chance to respond. He could feel her eyes burning into his back, a palpable heat of pure hatred. That, Maya said, falling into step beside him, was like watching a surgeon perform an autopsy on a live shark, brutal and beautiful. The fallout was immediate. Within 2 hours, the Willow Creek Estates Facebook group, a sleepy forum for lost cats and plumber recommendations, exploded into a digital battlefield. Carol Mercer fired the first shot. Her post was long, formal, and dripping with thinly veiled threats. "Dear residents," it began. "It has come to the board's attention that a new resident at 1217 Magnolia Drive is promoting an event this Saturday. While the board appreciates enthusiasm for community engagement, we must remind everyone that all gatherings are subject to the association's established covenants, which exist to protect our shared property values and ensure the peaceful enjoyment of our homes. Unsanctioned events pose significant risks regarding liability, noise violations, parking congestion, and sanitation. We strongly urge all residents to consider the potential consequences of participating in events that have not undergone a formal review and approval process by your elected board. We are a community of rules for the benefit of all." Comments trickled in immediately. Doris Ann Miller: "Thank you for the clarification. Carol, order is so important." Gary Swanson: "Parking is already a nightmare on Magnolia. He should have thought of that." But then another voice emerged. A man named Bill Henderson, who lived across the street from Alex, chimed in. "Bill Henderson: Are you serious, Carol? The new guy wants to throw a BBQ for everyone and you're sending out warnings? I thought this was a friendly neighborhood." "My kids are excited. This cracked the dam." Sarah Chen: "I agree with Bill. It sounds like fun. A great way to welcome a new family." Mike Rinaldi: "What review process? I've lived here 10 years, and the only community event is the mandatory holiday decorations meeting." Lighten up, the debate raged. Carol and her loyalists posted sections of the bylaws. The other side posted smiley face emojis and pictures of barbecue grills. The neighborhood was dividing in real time. Seeing his moment, Alex, who had just been accepted into the group, waded in. He didn't respond to Carol directly. He posted a new message, a digital version of his warm, disarming smile. "Hi, everyone. Alex Thompson from 1217 Magnolia here. I'm so excited to meet all of you, and I'm really looking forward to Saturday. I've read all the comments, and I want to put everyone's minds at ease. My sister Maya and I are handling everything, so you can all just relax and have a good time." He then addressed every single one of Carol's points, not as accusations, but as logistical challenges he was cheerfully solving. Parking: "You're right. The street can get tight. I've arranged with the Willow Creek Community Church at the end of the road to let us use their overflow parking lot. It's a short walk, and I'll have my nephew running a golf cart shuttle for anyone who needs it. Noise: it's a daytime party from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. sharp. We'll have a fun, family-friendly playlist, but I'll be monitoring the volume to make sure we're respectful to everyone. Kids and safety: I love kids, but safety is my #1 priority. I've hired 2 certified lifeguards to be on duty for the entire event so the parents can relax. Liability: I've taken out a special 1-day event insurance policy. Everyone is covered!" He ended the post with a flourish. "I know rules and regulations are important, but I think the most important rule in any neighborhood is be a good neighbor. I can't wait to be yours. Please RSVP so I know how many burgers to buy. All the best, Alex." The response was overwhelming. His post was flooded with likes and loves. The RSVP list on the event page he created grew exponentially. 20 families, 40, 60. Bill Henderson commented, "See, Carol, this is how a community is supposed to work." "Can't wait, Alex." "Need help with the grill?" Alex had not only neutralized her attack, he had turned it into a public relations triumph. He was the friendly, reasonable newcomer. She was the obstructionist bureaucrat. He spent the next 2 days in a blur of preparation, buying mountains of food, arranging for extra tables and chairs, confirming the lifeguards. A palpable buzz was building in the neighborhood. People waved at him on the street. Bill came over and offered the use of his industrial-sized cooler. It felt like a victory. On Friday afternoon, less than 24 hours before the party, a certified letter arrived. It was not an email. It was a thick, heavy envelope with a green certified mail sticker on it, requiring his signature. His stomach tightened. This felt different, more serious. He signed for it and tore it open, his hands suddenly clammy. The letterhead was official. Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association, Board of Compliance. The language was dense and legalistic, but the message was brutally clear. Pursuant to Bylaw 19G, which grants the board the right to inspect any property upon receipt of a formal safety complaint from a resident, you are hereby notified of a mandatory and immediate safety inspection of your premises at 1217 Magnolia Drive. The inspection will take place on Saturday, September 20th at 11 a.m. Saturday, 3 hours before his party was scheduled to begin. A formal complaint, the letter continued, has been filed by a concerned resident regarding potential safety hazards related to your swimming pool's fencing, gate latch and filtration system's electrical wiring. As per the bylaws, access must be granted. The inspection will be conducted. The morning of the party dawned bright and cruel. A perfect cloudless sky stretched over Willow Creek, promising a flawless day for a barbecue. In Alex's backyard, however, the atmosphere was thick with a tension that no amount of sunshine could dispel. Colorful citronella candles sat unlit. A mountain of hot dog buns lay sealed in their bags. A giant inflatable slide, rented for the kids, stood ready by the pool, its vibrant plastic seeming to mock the grim mood. Alex and Maya moved with a forced, quiet efficiency, their conversation clipped and low. Every few minutes, one of them would glance at the clock. 9:15 a.m., 9:47 a.m., 10:12 a.m. She's not going to find anything, Maya said, arranging bags of chips on a folding table. This house is brand new. It passed a dozen inspections before you even closed on it. You don't get it, Alex replied, his voice tight as he calibrated the temperature on the grill. She doesn't need to find something. She just needs to say she found something. It's her word against mine, and she's the HOA president. She has the clipboard. She can invent a violation, declare the pool unsafe, and by the time I fight it, the party will be over. I'll be humiliated, and she'll have made her point to the entire neighborhood. Don't cross Carol Mercer. So what's the plan? You're just going to let her? Alex stopped what he was doing and looked at his sister. His face was calm, but his eyes held the focused intensity she recognized from the worst days of his return from deployment, the look of a man analyzing a battlefield, calculating odds and preparing for contact. You don't win by stopping the attack, he said softly. You win by making the attack irrelevant. I need a witness. He pulled out his phone and found Bill Henderson's number, which Bill had insisted he take. He dialed. Hey, Bill, it's Alex Thompson. Listen, I know I'm asking a lot, but could you come over a little early? Say around 10:45. I've got this massive cooler that's heavier than it looks and could use a hand. He paused, listening. Yeah, that would be great. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. He hung up. Bill's on his way, he said to Maya. He's respected in the neighborhood. She won't be able to lie as easily with him standing right there. And if she does? Maya pressed. If she just makes something up anyway? A slow, grim smile touched Alex's lips. That's phase 2. At precisely 10:50 a.m., Bill Henderson arrived through the side gate, a cheerful, stocky man in cargo shorts and a faded Jimmy Buffett t-shirt. Man, this setup is amazing, he boomed. My kids are going to lose their minds over that slide. So where's this cooler? Right over here, Alex said, leading him to the deck. Thanks again for this. As they positioned the cooler, Alex quickly and quietly explained the situation. The letter, the inspection, the 11 a.m. deadline. Bill's friendly demeanor evaporated, replaced by a dark scowl. Son of a... I knew she was a piece of work, but this is a whole new level. Using a bogus safety complaint? That's disgusting. He crossed his burly arms. Don't you worry, Alex, I'm not going anywhere. Let's see her try to pull a fast one with an audience. At 11:02 a.m. on the dot, the doorbell rang. It wasn't the pleasant melodic chime from Carol's house. It was a harsh two-note buzz that sounded like an alarm. Alex opened the door. Carol Mercer stood on his porch holding a metal clipboard that glinted in the sun. Beside her stood Gary Swanson, a nervous, weaselly man whose primary role on the HOA board seemed to be nodding in agreement with Carol. Both were dressed in severe, businesslike attire that was comically out of place for a Saturday morning. "Mr. Thompson," Carol said without preamble, "we are here to conduct the safety inspection as per the notice you received." "Of course," Alex said, his voice betraying no emotion. He stepped aside. "Please come in. We can go straight through to the backyard." He led them through the house. Carol's eyes darted everywhere, cataloging the stacks of paper plates, the balloons, the sheer, joyful evidence of the party she was determined to destroy. When they stepped onto the pool deck and she saw Bill Henderson standing there, his arms crossed, a thunderous look on his face. She faltered for a fraction of a second. "Bill," she said, her voice tight with disapproval. "What are you doing here?" "Helping Alex set up for the community party you were invited to," Bill replied, his tone flinty. "Figured I'd stick around. See how an official HOA inspection works. Always good to be informed." Carol's jaw tightened, but she recovered quickly. She would not be deterred. "Very well. Gary, get the tape measure. Let's start with the fence perimeter." What followed was a masterclass in petty tyranny. For 45 agonizing minutes, Carol and Gary subjected Alex's backyard to a level of scrutiny that would have made a drill sergeant proud. They measured the height of the fence at 20 different points, announcing each measurement to the inch. They tugged on the gate, testing the magnetic latch over and over. Gary got on his hands and knees to inspect the gap between the bottom of the gate and the concrete. 3 7/8 inches, Carol declared. The maximum allowable is 4 inches. It passes, barely. They moved to the pool itself. Gary produced a thermometer and tested the water temperature as if it were a relevant safety metric. Carol ran her hand along the tile, searching for a chip or a crack. They found nothing. The pool was pristine. The equipment was new. The fence was secure. Alex watched in silence, his expression unreadable. Bill's face grew progressively darker. Finally, they came to the main drain at the bottom of the deep end. Carol stared down at it through the crystalline water. "The main drain cover," she said, her voice ringing with manufactured gravity. "Gary, get the schematics." Gary fumbled with a folder and produced a technical drawing. Carol studied it for a moment. "Mr. Thompson," she said, turning to him with an air of finality and triumph. "When was this pool installed?" "With the house." "Last year," Alex said. "I see," she purred. "Then you may not be aware that the federal safety standards for anti-entrapment drain covers were updated 4 months ago. The model you have here, the Aquaflow 3B, is no longer compliant for public or community use. It lacks the secondary stratification manifold required by the new code." She was inventing technical jargon, but it sounded terrifyingly official. "For a private family pool, it might be permissible," she continued, her voice rising so Bill could clearly hear. "But as you yourself have designated this a community event, the highest safety standards must apply. The drain poses a significant suction hazard. I have no choice but to declare this facility unsafe and immediately out of service." She looked him dead in the eye, a cruel, victorious smile finally breaking through her icy facade. "The pool is to be closed. Effective immediately. You will need to drain it and have a licensed contractor replace the cover. Until it is brought up to code and re-inspected by this board, any use of this pool is a direct and finable violation of HOA bylaws." This was it, the kill shot. In one move, she had shut down his party, branded him as negligent, and saddled him with a phantom repair job that would cost thousands. Gary Swanson nodded vigorously. "She's right, Mr. Thompson. It's a major safety issue." Bill looked stunned, ready to explode. "Now wait just a minute, Carol. This is insane." But Alex held up a hand, stopping him. He looked at Carol, his face a mask of serene calm. "Thank you, Carol. I appreciate your thoroughness and your commitment to the safety of our community." Carol's smile faltered. This was not the reaction she expected. She expected rage, arguments, defeat. In fact, Alex continued, turning to walk toward the patio table. "I was so concerned after receiving your notice yesterday that I wanted to make sure everything was perfect for my guests today." He picked up a folder from the table. "So I called in an expert of my own." He opened the folder and pulled out a multi-page document with a formal letterhead. "This is a full safety and compliance report from PoolSafe, the top licensed and bonded pool inspection company in the county. The inspection was performed yesterday at 4 p.m. If you'll turn to page 3, section 2. He handed the document to Carol. Her hands trembled slightly as she took it. Bill leaned over her shoulder to read. "You'll see the inspector specifically examined the main drain assembly." Alex's voice was cool and precise. "He certifies that the Aquaflow 3B cover is fully compliant with the Virginia Graham Baker Pool and Spa Safety Act, including all 2025 amendments, and that it meets or exceeds all known federal, state, and local requirements for community and residential use. The pool," and I quote, "receives the highest possible safety rating." He then pulled a second copy from his folder and handed it to Bill. "For your records—" "Bill!" The color drained from Carol Mercer's face. The clipboard slipped from her numb fingers and clattered onto the concrete deck. She was exposed. Her lies, her fabricated jargon, her entire scheme, all dismantled in an instant by a single, unimpeachable piece of paper. She had walked into a perfectly laid trap. In her attempt to publicly humiliate him, she had only managed to publicly humiliate herself in front of another resident. Gary Swanson looked at the report, then at Carol, his jaw slack with disbelief. Bill Henderson looked up from the document, his eyes boring into Carol with utter contempt. The silence was deafening, broken only by the gentle hum of the pool pump she had failed to silence. And then, another sound. The chime of the front doorbell. It was noon. A moment later, Maya opened the sliding glass door. "Alex, your first guests are here. It's the Hendy." As the Henderson boys cannonballed into the pool with triumphant war cries, the icy tension of the morning shattered like glass. The sound of their splashing was a starting pistol, and the party exploded into life. Within the hour, Alex's backyard was transformed. It was no longer a potential legal battlefield, but a vibrant, teeming ecosystem of suburban joy. Dozens of families filled the space, a kaleidoscope of floral print shirts, swim trunks, and sundresses. The air, once thick with dread, was now hazy with the savory smoke from the grill and alive with the cheerful cacophony of laughter, splashing, and the upbeat rhythm of a classic rock playlist. Children shrieked with delight as they careened down the inflatable slide. Neighbors who had only ever exchanged curt nods over lawnmowers were now clustered together. Paper plates in hand, sharing stories and laughing, Alex, spatula in hand, was at the center of it all, a gracious and unflappable host. He moved with an easy confidence, flipping burgers, handing out sodas, and making sure every guest felt welcomed. He was no longer the mysterious newcomer or the suspected rule breaker. He was Alex, the guy who threw the party that everyone would be talking about for years. "You, my friend, are a legend," Bill Henderson said, clapping Alex on the shoulder as he snagged a hot dog from the grill. "I haven't seen this many people in one place in Willow Creek since they tried to pass that beige-only mailbox rule." He lowered his voice. "Seriously, though, you have no idea what you did today. That woman has been running this neighborhood like her own private kingdom for a decade, fining people for having their trash cans out for an extra hour, measuring people's grass with a ruler. We all just took it because it was easier than fighting her. You didn't just throw a party, you staged a coup." Similar sentiments were echoed throughout the afternoon. A woman named Sarah Chen confessed that she'd received a formal warning for the non-native hue of her daughter's chalk drawings on the sidewalk. Another man recounted how Carol had tried to ban basketball hoops because the intermittent thudding disturbed the community's soundscape. Alex was just smiling and nodding. But inside, a new and uncomfortable understanding was dawning. He had just wanted to protect his own peace, to carve out a small moat of personal freedom. He hadn't intended to become the reluctant leader of a suburban rebellion. 2 houses down, behind a pristine bay window, Carol Mercer watched the rebellion unfold. She had traded her power suit for a silk robe, but her posture was just as rigid. In her hand was not a glass of iced tea, but her smartphone. With the zoom on her camera extended to its grainy maximum, she documented the chaos. Every car that was parked slightly askew on the church lot. Every child who shouted a little too loudly. Every group of adults whose laughter seemed to carry on the breeze. Each photo, each short video clip, was a piece of evidence. She was no longer an enforcer of rules. She was an intelligence operative gathering ammunition for a future, more decisive strike. Her public assault had failed. Now, she would begin a campaign of quiet, relentless subversion. Her focus was interrupted by a movement inside her own house. Her son, Daniel, was heading for the front door. He was 17, tall and lanky, with a perpetually slouching posture that seemed designed to help him slide through life unnoticed by his mother. "And where are you going?" Carol asked, her voice sharp. "Out," Daniel mumbled, not looking at her. "Gonna see if Matt's home? Matthew is with his family at that." "That spectacle," she said, gesturing with her phone toward Alex's house. "I forbid you to go over there." Daniel stopped, his hand on the doorknob. He finally turned to look at her, and for a moment a spark of defiance flickered in his eyes. "Why? Because people might actually be having fun for once? Because there's life happening somewhere other than in a rule book? Because that man is a menace," Carol snapped. "He has no respect for our rules, for our community. He is a disruptive influence, and I will not have you fraternizing with him." "He seems fine to me," Daniel muttered, and before she could issue another decree, he was out the door. He didn't turn toward his friend Matt's house. Carol watched in horror as her own son walked directly down the street and, without a moment's hesitation, turned up the driveway at 1217 Magnolia Drive. He disappeared through the side gate into the heart of the enemy camp. The betrayal was so profound, so personal, it felt like a physical blow. Alex saw him slip in, looking awkward and out of place. The boy hovered near the edge of the patio, clearly overwhelmed by the social energy. Alex recognized him instantly from family photos he'd seen on the community Facebook page. It was Daniel Mercer. He felt a jolt of alarm. Was he a spy? A Trojan horse sent by his mother? Wiping his hands on his apron, Alex walked over. "Hey, I don't think we've met." "I'm Alex." Daniel jumped, startled. Hey, I'm Daniel. I live down the street." He didn't offer his last name. "Welcome," Alex said, his voice neutral. "Glad you could make it. Can I get you a burger? Or a soda?" "Oh, no, I'm good," Daniel said quickly, stuffing his hands in his pockets. "I just heard the music." He looked around at the laughing families, the kids playing Marco Polo in the pool, the general atmosphere of relaxed happiness. "It's cool," he said quietly. "My house is never this loud." The way he said it with a kind of wistful longing struck Alex. This wasn't a spy. This was a refugee. A kid escaping a home so sterile and controlled that the sound of a normal neighborhood party felt like a foreign concept. All of Alex's strategic calculations and resentments melted away, replaced by a simple, human sympathy. "Well, you're welcome to hang out as long as you want," Alex said, his tone genuinely warm now. "The soda's in that cooler over there. Help yourself." Daniel gave him a small, grateful smile and wandered over to a chair in the corner, nursing a Coke and just watching. He stayed for 2 hours, barely speaking to anyone, but seeming to soak in the atmosphere. To Alex, his quiet presence was a more significant victory than the failure of the morning's inspection. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the lawn, the party began to wind down. Parents gathered their tired, waterlogged children. People came up to Alex one by one, shaking his hand, thanking him for an incredible day. "Best party this neighborhood has ever seen," Bill declared on his way out. "You've started something here, Alex." Daniel was one of the last to leave. He approached Alex hesitantly. "Hey, thanks. For the soda. And, he gestured vaguely at the yard. "For this?" "Anytime, man," Alex said. "Come by whenever." "Yeah, maybe," Daniel said, though they both knew he probably wouldn't. He gave a final, sad look at the sparkling pool and trudged off toward his own quiet, orderly home. Alex, Maya, and a few close friends who had stayed to help began the cleanup. The mood was triumphant. They had faced the dragon and won. As he bagged up the last of the paper plates, Alex felt a sense of profound peace settle over him. He had his moat back. It was then that his phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a notification from the Willow Creek Facebook group. He figured it was probably another neighbor posting about what a great time they'd had. He smiled, wiping his hands on his jeans as he pulled out the phone. His smile vanished. The post was from Carol Mercer. It was accompanied by a photo, a blurry, long lens shot taken from an angle that made it look like Alex and Daniel were alone, standing close together near the far side of the pool. The vibrant party was just a meaningless blur in the background. The caption she wrote beneath it was a tactical nuke. "Community safety alert," it began, in all caps. "While many of you were enjoying today's unsanctioned event, I feel it is my duty as a mother and as your HOA president to share a deeply disturbing observation. The new resident at 1217 Magnolia Drive, a single man about whom we know nothing, was seen deliberately isolating and engaging with a minor from our community for an extended period of time. As parents, we must ask ourselves, do we really know who is moving into our neighborhood? I urge you all to remain vigilant and to prioritize your children's safety over a free hamburger. I will be discussing this with the board." The blood drained from Alex's face. The air, which moments before had been filled with the satisfying scent of victory, suddenly felt cold and thin. She hadn't just moved the goalposts. She had blown up the entire stadium. This wasn't about rules anymore. She was trying to brand him as a predator. The phone felt impossibly heavy in Alex's hand, a small, glowing rectangle of pure poison. The laughter from the few friends still helping him clean up died in their throats as they saw his face, which had gone chalk white. The triumphant energy of the evening vanished, sucked into a sudden, terrifying vacuum. "Alex? What is it?" Maya asked, stepping toward him. Wordlessly, he held out the phone. Maya took it, her brow furrowed in confusion. Her eyes scanned the screen. The confusion curdled into disbelief, then into a gasp of pure outrage. "Oh my God, that witch." One by one, his friends looked at the screen. The reaction was the same, a wave of shock, followed by boiling anger. The digital firestorm was already raging. The comment section under Carol's post was a cesspool of fear and accusation, metastasizing in real time. Doris Ann Miller. "Carol, thank you so much for your vigilance. A mother's intuition is never wrong. So scary." Gary Swanson. "I said from the beginning this man was a problem. Total disregard for our rules. Now this. The board needs to act." Jenna Peterson. "Wait, is this Daniel you're talking about? My son was there today. I feel sick to my stomach. Bill Henderson's furious defense was a lone ship in a sea of panic." Bill Henderson. "This is slander, Carol, and you know it. I was there. My kids were there. Alex was a gracious host to everyone. You should be ashamed of yourself for posting a misleading photo and a disgusting lie because you're sore about losing your little inspection battle." But his words were immediately swamped by a fresh wave of hysteria. Mark Finley. "He's right. Bill is friends with the guy. How can we trust that? This is a child safety we're talking about." Better safe than sorry. Sarah Chen. "I don't know what to believe, but the photo is very creepy. Why were they standing off by themselves like that?" The community he had won over just hours before was turning on him with terrifying speed. The seeds of goodwill he had planted were being ripped out and replaced with weeds of suspicion. Carol knew exactly what she was doing. She wasn't trying to win an argument. She was starting a fire. A primal rage, hot and blinding, surged through Alex. It was the same fury he'd felt in combat when the enemy wasn't a visible soldier, but a hidden IED, an unseen threat that could destroy you from the ground up. He wanted to smash something. He wanted to storm over to Carol Mercer's house and demand she look him in the eye and repeat her lie. He took a step toward the gate before his friend Mark grabbed his arm. "Whoa, Alex, don't!" "She can't do this," Alex growled, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "She can't just invent a lie like this and get away with it. And you marching over there, screaming at her, is exactly what she wants," Maya said, her voice sharp and steady, cutting through his anger. Think, Alex. She posts that you're a creep and 5 minutes later you show up on her doorstep in a rage? You'll prove her right. You'll be the unstable single man she's painting you as. Don't you see? This is a trap. He stopped, breathing heavily. She was right. Every instinct screamed for confrontation, for immediate, violent rebuttal. But his training screamed louder. Never react on the enemy's terms. Control the engagement. He clenched and unclenched his fists, forcing the white-hot rage down, banking it like a coal he might need later. The anger receded, leaving behind something colder and far more dangerous. Clarity. Okay, he said, his voice level again. Okay, what do I do? How do I fight this? You have to respond, Mark said. On the Facebook post. Deny it. Calmly. A denial won't be enough, Alex countered, already thinking 3 moves ahead. It'll just be my word against hers. She's an established community figure. I'm the new guy. Who are they going to believe? The real-world consequences began less than 15 minutes later. A neighbor, a woman named Linda, whose son had spent an hour perfecting his cannonball in Alex's pool, was walking her dog on the opposite side of the street. She saw Alex standing in his driveway under the warm glow of the porch light. Their eyes met for a second. Her friendly post-party smile faltered. A look of fear, real, unadulterated fear, flashed across her face. She tightened her grip on the leash, pulled her dog close and quickened her pace, all but running to the safety of her own home without a word. The snub was more painful than any of the anonymous comments online. It was a physical manifestation of the lie, a social shrapnel wound. The moat he'd built was gone. Now his house felt like a cage, and he was the animal on display. His phone rang. It was Bill Henderson. Alex, you seeing this? I'm trying to fight back in the comments, but it's like trying to hold back the tide with a fork. People are scared. Carol is calling other board members, trying to convene an emergency meeting to have you investigated. Investigated for what? Alex asked, his voice hollow. For talking to her son at a party she was invited to? It doesn't have to make sense, Bill said, his voice grim. You have to do something, man. This is getting out of control. Is there anything from your past she could twist? Any way she could make this look credible? The question hung in the air, heavy and dark. Alex thought of his past, the things he never talked about. The sand, the sirens, the things he'd had to do. Nothing criminal, but things a person like Carol could easily rip from their context and fashion into a weapon. No, Alex said, his voice hard. There's nothing. As he hung up, a wave of despair washed over him. How could he prove his character to people who were determined to see him as a monster? He was trapped. Any move he made could be twisted and used against him. If he stayed silent, he was guilty. If he responded angrily, he was unstable. If he tried to talk to Daniel to clear his name, he would be accused of intimidating a minor. He and Maya stood in the now spotless backyard, the party lights casting a lonely, festive glow over the empty space. The water in the pool was still and dark, reflecting a sky that was no longer friendly. The peace he had bought, that he had fought for, was gone, and then they saw it. Headlights turning onto their street. A car was cruising slowly past the houses, its searchlights sweeping across the manicured lawns. It slowed as it approached Alex's house. It was a police cruiser. The car didn't pass. It pulled into his driveway, the engine cutting out, plunging the street into an unnerving silence. The red and blue lights remained off, but its presence was an accusation, a public branding. Curtains twitched in the houses up and down the block. Everyone was watching. 2 police officers got out of the car. They walked up the pathway, their footsteps loud in the quiet night. One of them, a tall, stern-faced man, knocked on the front door. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Maya looked at Alex, her face pale with dread. She actually did it. She called the cops. This was the final escalation. Carol's digital smear campaign had broken through into the real world in the most terrifying way imaginable. He was no longer a neighbor in a dispute. He was a suspect. Alex squared his shoulders, the cold clarity returning, sharp and absolute. He walked through his house, his mind racing, and opened the front door. "Good evening, officers," he said, his voice perfectly level. "Is there a problem?"